Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 6 of the 7 Deadly Shadows. This is a big one today. We're talking about scarcity, and we all know this shadow. Now, before I go into today's material, I want to address a question that I misunderstood on condemnation on that day. Someone asked me a question that I re-listened to, and I realized I misinterpreted it. It was something about how do you not override instincts, or how do you not bypass instincts? And I inverted the question in my mind. I just didn't get it quite right. So what I believe that person was asking was, how do you differentiate instincts that keep you safe, and how do you differentiate condemnation from that? And here's my answer. So instincts that are designed to keep you safe and protect you feel clear, sharp, and neutral. That's not condemnation. It's do this, get out, leave this place, stay away from that person. There's like a very clear, neutral guidance that is, the best way I can describe it is it's crisp. It's very crisp. It doesn't have like a critical, judgmental tone. It doesn't have a whole bunch of morality involved on like this is good or bad. Instincts of danger are very, we're going to be talking about this primal shadow today, but it feels primal. It feels like a no. It feels like it defies the mind. It defies logic. It has nothing to do with thought, really. Thought, judgment, morality are not involved in instincts to move and keep yourself safe. So I just wanted to address that initial question that I got. I'm very happy you're all here. I really hope you've been enjoying this series. Definitely. This is going to be a big topic. So if you have questions about money, abundance, all things related to scarcity, money, resources, this will be the day that you can ask those questions. The first thing that I want to mention is the unique characteristics of scarcity. So once again, it's the same mechanics as all of the other wounds, or all the other shadows, where you unplug. So as soon as the scarcity shadow is sitting in front of you, you take the bait, you buy in, you unplug, right? So the interesting thing about scarcity is this is actually the most primal wound. So this is like the original shadow that we have. It's the most primal shadow that we feel. And the reason being was it was the first point of expansion for humans, really. This, and also let's just stick with this. I don't want to get too deep. So think about, let's go back to hunter-gatherer tribes. Okay, living off of the land, all of that stuff. If you run out of food, you're going to die. So one of the first things that we were interfacing with was scarcity. It was one of the very first shadows. So when you experience scarcity in your everyday life, you still have all the equipment, all the same mechanical pieces. Your body's technology responds to scarcity in the same way. So the primal story that exists within you is, if I don't get this, I'm gonna die. That's why scarcity is it's primitive. It's instinctual. It's like, I've got to engage in this shadow. So it's almost like the body can somewhat override your consciousness in certain cases. This is why so many people struggle with money. Because things have obviously evolved and adapted, and it's no longer just if you don't have food, you're going to die. That's not what we're really dealing with in terms of scarcity. It looks a lot different. It's more of, if I don't get this money, my life is going to bottom out, or debt collectors are going to start hitting me up, or I'm not going to be able to provide for this, that, and the other thing. So it's shape-shifted over our evolution. So scarcity has always been with us since the very beginning. It's like the first shadow. So now our work essentially is to not take the bait of scarcity when it shows up, because it definitely will. It shows up at every level. It shapeshifts. It evolves with you. So your job is to keep a very close eye on when scarcity is popping up. That shadow is doing its dance. It's very tempting. It makes you feel like you want to take the bait. You've got to stay connected. You've got to stay plugged in. Plugged in this sense is plugged into the truth of well-being. I'm using this language really, really specifically and intentionally because abundance is too loaded for a lot of people. So if I say abundance is the truth, there's going to be some resistance and kickback for many of you, where you're like, well, I'm not experiencing it, so I can't believe it. If I say well-being is easier to get your mind around because you detach it from money. I'll give you a really good example of this. Well-being has more of the energy of quality of life than number in the bank. Even though technically they cross over with each other in many instances. But we don't associate directly the essence of well-being and the feeling of well-being with money, so it's more palatable. If you have a lot of resistance and money hang-ups and all sorts of crap going on in your energetic field about money stuff. So I've mentioned my best friend has been traveling, and I said, I believe I said this yesterday, I explained that her life is pretty much completely bottomed out. She's had total fallout in her life. She doesn't have an apartment. She doesn't have any money. She's not working right now. She's in another country. Everything is at ground zero, right? And she was expressing some money fear and some frustration around money. And she wanted some reflection from me. And I said, you know, you're so connected to well-being, to this energy of well-being, that it doesn't even matter what number is in the bank account, because still you're in a beautiful home. You still have a job lined up for when you get back. You have a first-class flight from Brazil back to the US. You just bought a bunch of new clothes. Like, when we're looking at what is the level of well-being that you are allowing into your life, it's a very high degree of well-being. You're totally taken care of. This isn't about money. It's well-being. That's the vibe. That's the energy. So when you're connected, if you can take your mind away from money, it will help a lot. And I've also had this experience in my personal life, when my life bottomed out and I didn't have any money and I didn't have a job and I lost everything and I made some bad investments. I was very young. When this happened to me, I knew that I was still an energetic match for nice things and a high quality of life and in a very high level of well-being, because I always was in a nice house. I was always well fed. I had everything that I needed. I wasn't wanting for anything, even though I didn't have money. Well-being was high, money was low, but it didn't matter. The money caught up. But I'm just painting this for you to give you more of the full picture of what's happening with the energetics with all of this. That if, when you are facing the scarcity shadow, because it's going to come up, if you can connect to just the very general broad stroke of well-being, of you being taken care of you being divinely held, that's what connection looks like in this context. And it will be much easier for you to reconnect if you can think about it from that vibe of nothing needs to happen to your bank account in order for you to feel into the divine being held, that everything is orchestrating in your favor. Things are going to shake out. Things are going to work in your favor, right? Everything's working out. Everything's working out. Everything's working out. Now, of course, that reality needs time to fill in. If you're not fighting against, but if you are reconstructing something that has been present for decades, right? So this does need to be held consistently, but that is an excellent starting place when we're talking about scarcity, navigating scarcity. What is it really, and what is the medicinal frequency for it? Connection in terms of well-being is it. That is the best and fastest way to go about it. Let me check my notes. Okay, so remember we've talked about the universe expanding at an equal pace of shadow and light, right? So the interesting thing is that you experiencing scarcity, looking at the scarcity shadow, when we were hunter-gatherers and maybe you spent a few lifetimes back in the day running out of food. Over time, we really haven't been able to watch it directly because it changes generation by generation by generation. It gets increasingly better. But because we have not, because it appears to be slow, we can't fully see the picture unless I describe it and map it out for you, like I'm about to do here. So you had some lifetimes early on where food shortage was like the big shadow that was present. Okay, starvation, all of that. Droughts, crops getting washed out, all of that. What ended up happening is the universe expanded into more. So then the abundance energy was the very tip of the universal expansion. That's what came out of it. So you spent these lifetimes, it was like, okay, scarcity, now I'm shifting into more. You incarnate again. Now, maybe agriculture has evolved. And so then, maybe there's like a famine. There's the potato famine. People die. Okay, so then you shift into more. Now there's this desire that emerges for greater security and stability. Consistent abundance. Ever-present abundance. More time goes on. The economy evolves more. Food supply evolves even more. And so your desire for stability, for abundance, evolves even further. Now, every time you incarnate, You're experiencing more abundance, but you have no memory of past lifetimes, so you can't fully appreciate the abundance that you've already calibrated to. You've actually been doing it for incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. So the abundance that you're experiencing now, the quality of life that you're experiencing now, the access to food that you're experiencing now, has been a multi-lifetime project that all of humanity and the entire universe and God has been in on the entire time. Is that not the craziest thing you've ever heard? When you are looking around at what you have going on, you're actually looking at lifetimes worth of work. All of it. Your ability to connect right now with me through this screen has been lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes and endless universal expansion. And the truth of well-being and abundance, that is the truth. You know that it's the truth because that's where humanity is now. Because we're not trapped in a potato famine. If abundance weren't the truth, if well-being wasn't the truth, if love, God, divine support wasn't the truth, you would not be in the conditions that you're in right now. I don't care if you have $500,000 in debt. It's undeniable that the conditions that are accessible now are way better than caveman days. It's just the natural order of our evolution and of our expansion. So I'm doing my best to appeal to your logic in terms of when the scarcity shadow shows up. Can you reconnect to, once again, broadening your scope, taking a bird's eye view as much as you can, looking at the holistic picture of what has really been going on for lifetimes, what has been going on for all of these incarnations. Oh yeah, I'm actually in the best possible position and I have a desire for more. All of the scarcity that I've experienced has now shaped my wanting for more, the same way when you were a caveman, when you were primitive, you had a desire for more food. You wanted fruit on the tree year round, I'm sure. It's like, fuck winter. I want food all the time, right? There was this desire for that. Big stuff. Okay, let me see where we're going next. This is just such a big topic. I really want to set the stage properly. Okay, so this is the other piece. Now, of course, when we think of scarcity, we often think of money, we think of resources, we think of food, water, shelter, right? We think of primal needs. This is why I'm calling this the original shadow. Like, this is the first one. This is the one that's connected to your root and your body. Because it really gets at the heart of survival. We could call this like a root chakra shadow, if you will. Quick note on this. I've had people, someone mentioned to me recently about the root being related to money. And I said, well, that's not the whole story. The root isn't money. The root is survival. Now, if you're in a root chakra relationship with money, then that means you are in a scarcity relationship with money. You're in a survival relationship with money. I don't actually recommend that. Like, from an energetic standpoint, in your energetic body, relating to money from the root is a high stress way to live. So even though people associate it with it, it's a misinterpretation, because you can relate to money from the heart. You can have a heart relationship, a heart connected or a crown connected relationship to money. Root just means survival. So yes, we think about it in terms of resources. However, scarcity also shows up in terms of time, a scarcity of time, a shortage of time, scarcity of love, scarcity of opportunities, scarcity of pretty much anything. Scarcity of even things that you would consider to be a luxury or what you would call a miracle. If you took Heaven's Nectar, that was another masterclass that I did last summer. It was bomb, by the way. Heaven's Nectar was a fantastic masterclass. But one of the desires that came up was to win an Oscar. Now, a lot of people have scarcity energy around something like an Oscar, even though we know people who have won multiple Oscars. But if you put an Oscar nomination or winning an Oscar in this category of being scarce rather than they're being handed out like candy, there are people who have more than one. One is connecting you to the scarcity shadow. One is connecting you to divine knowledge, that ever-present well-being. So even the things that you desire to have, whether it's something that you need to live or not, whether it's money-related, resource-related, or it's just something that's fun, it's luxurious, it's something that would bring you more joy. It doesn't need to be, you've got to have it or you're going to die. We can project scarcity onto anything. And humans do this all the time. You do it with parking spaces. You do it with potential partners. You do it with clothing. You do it with good restaurants. You do it with all sorts of stuff. All sorts of stuff gets clouded by scarcity. And so when you can dispel this and understand this is a non-truth, from an energetic standpoint, it's not true, because that's like saying God can't accommodate you with a good restaurant. God can't deliver a parking space. God can't bring you a good partner. Like, that's just something that can't be facilitated. It's rare. It's uncommon. It's unlikely. The odds aren't in your favor. It's statistically unlikely. That's scarcity. We're running out. You know, I understand a lot of people have like climate or eco anxiety. And I've thought a lot about this. And one of the things that has always perplexed me and has never made sense is water. Water does not make sense to me. I'm fully aware of the life cycle of water and evaporation and cloud systems. Yeah. I get it. It still doesn't add up to me. It still doesn't make sense. Water, with everything that we do, at the scale that we do it, water defies logic. I could have a scientist sit and do their best to explain it to me, And I'm telling you right now, it does not add up with the amount of water. Or sometimes I'll hear like this 17 million gallon tank. All sorts of things like that just are not adding up to me. And the other thing is, I'm in California, and one of the things that the California government loves to talk about is droughts. If that's true, I'm not sure why the golf course that is nearby is still operating. None of this adds up, and none of it makes any sense. It's just one of those things that at a certain point I said something is not quite right about this. Something is off. And I started thinking about the energetics. Well, what creates idea? Let's go back to day one. What creates? It is the idea that is then translated by a human brain into a thought, which then materializes. That is the order of how energetics work, how things come from the quantum field, right? That astral plane that we're talking about, the desire for more, and it turns into real stuff. So I said, okay, let's say people started freaking out about water. Well, would humanity go extinct? No, this is actually what would happen energetically. Scientists would discover a new source of water, or they would say, oh, we have new technology that actually solves this. Oh my God, we just found all of this water. We have no clue where it came from, but it just has come about. All of that would end up being possible because what creates idea, aka energy, thought, material. That's the order that things go. And so I've also been quite curious about all of this. So I've listened to a lot of scientific discussion with some people who are pretty much on the leading edge of all of this stuff in terms of scientific discovery. And there was one scientist in particular who said the interesting thing about the climate is that people don't even have to become conscious of it because so much is already in the works. Like everyday people, everyday citizens don't even need to be privy to these types of conversations and to this type of technology because so much is already happening. People don't have to wake up to it if they don't want to, really, because so much is in motion. And I was like, isn't that something? And I hear this more and more and more from scientists who say the same thing. It's like, no, this stuff is already happening. Things are already in the works. Then when I put that together with, well, what would happen on an energetic level? More would happen, more would occur, more would be born, more would be discovered, a solution would appear. What, you think we came down to Earth, we've been given this beautiful planet, full of diversity, full of shadow and full of light, and you think that a little scarcity shadow is going to take us out? It's not. That's not how this works. That would have happened long ago. If scarcity was the thing that was going to take us out, it would have already happened. That would have already been done on some type of resource level. But again and again and again, time and time and time again, we're held. We're supported. Well-being floods in. The solutions flood in. No matter how many problems humans create or how many shadows humans engage in, solutions abound. More is resolved. Things get better and better and better all the time. And so now I am not afraid of being on earth because of this. Where there was a certain point in time where some things would stress me out. When I was young, in particular, like really young, I would have a lot of anxiety and stress about it. But now, understanding the energetics, listening to some of the conversations that are being had, it's just reconnected me to, once again, well-being is infinitely available. There is nothing that God will not provide. Nothing. It doesn't matter if it's an Oscar. But you have to connect to that knowing first. That's the only condition that needs to be met. Nothing needs to happen externally. You're not powerless. Nothing needs to happen here. This is an energetic knowing that you access internally. It's a frequency you tap into. Who here has money guilt? Woo! Raise your hands. Now, when I first ran Money Magic, I did a Q&A. I actually did a Q&A before I did the first lecture. And there were so many people. Money guilt, money guilt, money guilt, money guilt, money guilt. And I'm wondering if any of you have money guilt. Can you tell me why you feel guilty about money? Or is it just, I feel guilty because there are people on earth who experience not having? I don't know if anyone is typing, but I am curious. I'm going to give it just a second. Because this is a big conversation. I feel guilty that I don't have much money and don't contribute to my family as much as I desire. Okay. I will definitely address that. I have guilt about not having enough for all the things my daughter wants in life. Okay. Good. Thank you for clarifying that for me, because I don't feel guilt. So it's hard for me to like connect to guilt. So it's nice having this reflection. Okay. So let's go back to well-being. Okay. That is where we want to go. That's the broadest energy, the broadest stroke that you can use for this. If you are connected to well-being, it can actually override this money thing that you're experiencing. Because if you're connected, if you're bringing that energy into the situations, the money becomes obsolete. As soon as you focus on the money or the not being able to do, you unplug. That's why you experience guilt. If you're connected, if you're plugged in, if you're brimming and radiating with well-being, and then you're bringing that into the interactions, things will shift. If you make it a practice every day to continually plug in, connect, stay connected, and hold it as long as you can, money will organize itself around you, because money is always I've talked about this before, but think about, there is a gigantic river floating of money, like this floating stream of money, checks, bills, whatever you want to imagine. And literally all you have to do is touch it. All you have to do is touch it. Just touch it, and then it comes to you. That's essentially what working with a frequency is like. Is you're just dipping your hand into that river and it flows. You're just focusing on it. The hardest part for people with this is not taking the bait. So the bait would be, I checked my bank account. That's taking the bait. There's this story that's being presented that my family isn't getting what they want, that I can't provide. You're taking the bait. I can't give my daughter what she wants in life. You're taking the bait. That's all bait. Scarcity bait. It's very tempting. But it is what gets you to unplug. That's the key thing. You have to stay connected to well-being in order for this to continually flow into your life. You want to focus on it more in order for it to consistently flow into your life. Your attention is powerful. Your focus is powerful. The stories that you're telling are really powerful. Your desires are powerful. So you have to go first. If you're saying, I want to contribute to my family in all of these ways, you've got to go there first. You have to know that that is done on an energetic level. It's available on an energetic level. Your job is to become energetically compatible with it. So the conditions will not come before the energetics. They will not. Idea, thought, material. That's how it works. So the guilt, when you're saying I'm guilty for not having enough, you're saying I'm guilty for not connecting to the point where money flows in. I feel guilty for unplugging. And then I look at this thing and I feel guilty and I use it as an excuse to unplug. I feel guilty that I keep looking at that and I keep unplugging, and then that's causing me to not have money. That's the loop that has to be broken. You have to get off of that cycle. You've got to stop taking the bait. The priority has to be staying connected to well-being. It must. Does that make sense? Do you have any questions about that? Let's also talk about one of the interesting things about the economy, if you will. But please let me know if you have any questions or reflections. One of the big places where guilt comes from, I notice, is the idea that there is a finite amount of money. Like there's only so much. So then it becomes, if I make this, if I receive this money, someone else gets less. Or if this rich person is making this amount of money, that means other people are getting less and are not receiving. Just don't take the bait and essentially be grateful for the well-being I have. That might be too loaded. Because if I could give that a voice, that message that you just sent a voice, it sounds like just be grateful for what I have. That's what that sounds like. Yeah. Yeah. That's not, no, you can, this is where people get confused. Grateful is probably you're too specific. It's like, yes, gratitude is awesome when you're actually in the vicinity of it. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so blissed out. Like, I can get to the point where I can be in tears of gratitude. That's real, but it has to be authentic. It can't be, you can't force gratitude. When I'm saying well-being, I'm saying connect to the divine truth that all is available, or the inevitability of you being taken care of. Again, very, very broad, very meta, will help you sink into it a little bit more. Don't focus on your external stuff, because that's what's triggering the expansion. You've already done that. So you just start introducing more clutter and more garbage into the mix when you're looking at what you have going on, and then you resent it. So that doesn't, the whole just be grateful thing doesn't work. I'm talking about a frequency that you're connecting to through acknowledging. This is why we started with, look at our evolution so far. That's how broad we want to go with, like, this is absolutely inevitable, and it has been proving itself for lifetimes. Abundance, well-being, and being supported has been proving itself to be true for lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes, incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. That's way different than just be grateful. If you were in Fabric of the Universe, you know that makes you redline. Don't redline. So not taking the bait means stop introducing a story that makes you feel bad. That's the practice, is like, what are you saying to yourself? What's the story that you have going on? What about this? I know money scarcity doesn't exist, but I have problems sometimes getting the next ping of how to get it, how to get there, or the next level. Does that make any sense? Yes. What you're talking about is like, what's the inspired action? Now, again, you have to go energetically first. This is, you want to stop looking at 3D in order to get the operations correct. The order is immaterial first. So that ethereal, whimsical imagination plane, that is the first piece. So when you're talking about the next level or the next thing, it does exist. It's just not material yet. Material is late stage. Go back to Fabric of the Universe. I'll include a Fabric of the Universe if there's anyone who wants to jump inside there in the description box or in the email later, because it explains all of this really in depth. So immaterial first. Then thought. So the interpretation of. Action way later. So this is probably an issue of you trying to go too fast. I want to hurry up and get this action thing going, because now you're in powerlessness. I don't have an action to take yet. There's nothing for me to do, so I can't get this money. Yep. So now you're in the powerlessness shadow. And this is why the game is actually played in the astral realm first, the imagination plane first, the non-physical plane first. the quantum field first. Do I trust every ping I get? No, I'm like overflowing with ideas. I have so many ideas. I honestly like give them away to people who I'm like, you can do this, because I'm overloaded with ideas. So that's definitely not my problem. I'm also in human design and emotional authority. So I've got to wait. I've got to like go through a whole emotional wave before I can get clear. So no, definitely not. Yeah, such a good topic. I've been having to hold myself back from moving forward with something until I get more clarity around what I really want to follow. Yeah. Yes. So again, that's not everyone's design. Some people's design is to like, you get the hit, you move with it. That just doesn't work for me. That's not my design. So human design is helpful for decision making. I always point people to human design, if nothing more, just to understand how you make decisions. That's like the basic thing it'll help you with. So no, I literally cannot trust every ping. Analysis paralysis means you're in your mind. So again, that's another form of disconnecting. Just like, I need to figure it out. I need to make sure nothing ever goes wrong. I need to make sure I don't make a mistake. So it's a form of condemning yourself. See, this is why I chose all these shadows, because everything that we do that disconnects us can fall into one of the categories. And so condemning, I can't make a mistake. I could get it wrong, or what if this opportunity never comes? Now you're in scarcity. If you're feeling pressure to make a choice about an opportunity because you feel like it won't come back, you're in scarcity. If you're afraid of failure, you're in condemnation. If you feel like you need to take action right now, otherwise nothing is going to happen, you're in powerlessness. Right? So the money is literally, you want to think about it in terms of energy. Money feels like relaxed support, stability, just a breath of fresh air. It feels like everything's going to be okay. It feels regulated. It feels like peace. That's like the solid foundation of money. You don't need money to feel that. So you've got to feel it first. That's what I meant by tap into well-being. Can you feel peace? Well, I'm not going to be able to get my daughter. You're unplugging. That's the game. But I can't get, nope. Shh. Right? You have to feel the peace, feel the bliss, feel that everything is going to be okay unconditionally first. Then things will start to fill in. So that I feel like that's a really solid place to kind of put a period on the end of this sentence. How do you feel? Does that make more sense? I want to make sure that I'm getting this really clear for you. Do you understand that the well-being I'm talking about is essence? It is essence. It is non-physical. It can be related to your conditions and your environment, but don't start with that if you're in shambles, if you're in a bad position. It's not the place to lead. Okay. So let's go back to this finite resources piece. A lot of scarcity comes from this belief that there is only so much. When you're working with the quantum field or energetics, That is not how it works, because the creation comes from the idea, which is then interpreted by your mind and turns into a thought. That means things are infinitely expanding all of the time. I know that it seems like it's not real, and it bends my mind as well. Okay? Let's just say that there are X amount of houses in a given area. There's only so many houses. There's like a finite amount of houses. From a quantum field perspective, that's not quite the full picture, because things will be created. The desire will be created by you. So as soon as you say, there's not enough, I want more, or, oh, there's like not many houses available, that creates a desire for more houses being available. That means it exists. If you line up with that, it will present itself. Now, how that gets organized, I mean, I can't even speak to that fully, because there's so much involved. But it's not quite the way humans think about it. We think about it in terms of these scientific measurements rather than infinitely expanding energy that we have the ability to tap into. And so it's put me in this position where I have actually opted for focusing on my desire and shifting away from the idea that there is limited anything, that any type of resource is limited, or there is no limits. There are no limits in terms of what is available if it can be imagined and desired. Everything will come in to support the fulfillment of the desire, so long as you allow it, so long as you don't get distracted and you don't take the bait. When you take the bait on stuff, things stop being able to come to you. Temporarily. They don't stop being there. They just can't get to you. They can't find you. Okay, let's talk about the horseshoe. Let's talk about the horseshoe effect. Scarcity exists at all levels of wealth. It exists for the poorest people. It exists for the richest people. But it shows up in different ways. And so around the topic of wealth, a lot of people condemn wealthy people, again, from a place of scarcity. You having that means someone else can't have da-da-da. Or if I receive this, then someone else can't receive that. None of that is true, because again, this divine source is infinitely available to all the time, 24 hours a day. It doesn't sleep, it doesn't eat, it doesn't take lunch breaks. It is always, 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 always available. It is just that we are interpreting it and using it and expanding in different ways. That's really where the diversity really comes into play, because we have different desires. There are different things that we want. There's different conclusions that we've come to, so on and so forth. So the way that I was thinking about it the other night, because this is like one of the big things that I see people do with scarcity, is persecute and condemn people who have money or are well-resourced or whatever. But you never see people condemn poverty. And this was rattling me the other night, because I was, thinking about this conversation that we're going to have. And I just found it really interesting that people typically only look at the shadow side of wealth. in terms of human behavior. And it goes like this. When you think about, okay, one side is poverty, one side is wealth. And then you have shadow behavior. So it's kind of like a shadow chart, if you will. The graph looks like this. So most people are living somewhere in the center. But when you get really extreme on either end, the behavior in the shadow gets worse and worse and worse as a result of scarcity. So on the wealth side of things, scarcity usually comes up like sweatshops, cheap labor overseas, exploiting labor, or disregarding labor laws, or stuff like that. Using cheap synthetic materials to save, 30 cents. Things like that. Or, treating Amazon workers poorly. That's like the shadow side of scarcity in a wealth context. So even though a lot of money is being made, there is still scarcity that is being operated from that is, we need to be cheap here so we can save a little bit of money. That's scarcity. Like, if we pay our people more, we're not going to make more. That's scarcity. Or let me think of another example for the wealth scarcity. This has actually come up recently. I've been watching some online drama unfold. It's been very, very juicy. If this is wrong, I don't want to be right. So I have been hearing about, basically, there is a wealthy woman online who has been working with people and becoming hostile when they no longer want to work with her. That's scarcity. To shift into condemning someone and feeling like you need to pressure, bully someone into continuing to pay you when they don't want to work with you anymore. That's scarcity. If you need to operate that way in order to run a successful business, you're in scarcity. So that's a shadow expression of wealth, or scarcity in a wealth context. Poverty. This is the one that I wanted to, you see it in terms of blackmail. If you don't give me this, I'm going to do that. You saw this with Jeffrey Epstein. He was blackmailing everyone. If you don't give me this, I'm going to show people I'm going to show them these photos. I'm going to let them know where you were. I have all these videotapes of you. That's scarcity. Like, you think there's like not enough available to the point where you need to be blackmailing people? That's a scarcity move. That's not abundance. That's not wealth consciousness at all. Now, on the other side, poverty, so the extreme side of poverty, is scary. It's just as scary, if not more. At least for myself personally, the only traumas that have kept me up at night have been the poverty traumas that I've dealt with as a child. And this looks more like people fighting each other over a $5 bill, stealing from children. My younger sister had her piggy bank stolen after years and years and years of saving money, and she was in extreme poverty. And a grown man robbed her. Her uncle, no less. Like, the deeper into scarcity you go, the darker the behavior gets. Another way this shows up is someone stealing something from you and helping you look for it. That's scarcity behavior. So it doesn't matter how much money you do or don't have. The scarcity can exist. The scarcity can exist and manifest in all sorts of different ways. So the thing that I really wanted to just burst the bubble, if you are in the position where you do feel bad that poverty exists, the one thing that I experienced from being exposed to intense poverty, extreme poverty, is typically people who feel really, really bad that poverty exists or that poor people exist don't know poor people. I typically only see this from like middle class, even low middle class, or people who are born into wealth, who have just the most extreme pity or money guilt or financial guilt, or like, oh, if I have this, then someone else can't have that. But you've never seen the types of behaviors that you probably would condemn if you experienced poverty, like hardcore poverty. Because it's an absolute nightmare. So if you need a permission slip to stop feeling guilty, let this be it. Because I can tell you, after years, and still not just getting a snapshot of it as a child, but actually watching a longitudinal study of all of this, and watching the behavior, and watching the evolution, and watching what has happened, and watching these people develop, I can tell you right now, there is not a guilty bone in my body about tapping into well-being and making money and being well-resourced. Further, if you are a bleeding heart who has a hard time receiving money and allowing yourself to be well-resourced, consider that not tapping into well-being, constantly being consumed by guilt, makes it so that you aren't your best self. When you unplug, you're not your best self. And you're also not your best self for others. So spending time in guilt is, for lack of better terms, it's a waste of time. It is a waste of energy. It is like you are lighting time on fire when you spend it in guilt, rather than spending it getting into connection with your source. Pitying the poor doesn't save the poor. Feeling guilt doesn't help you tap into well-being. Experiencing and harping on guilt all the time isn't going to make you more money. The focus on getting into the frequency of, getting into the feeling, getting into the vibe, getting into the storyline, the timeline of money, of resources, of the infinite, ever-present well-being that always exists, that is worth your time. Guilt is not. And every time I personally have a scarcity thought, form, feeling come up, I just ask myself, is this taking me closer to money, or is this holding me away from money? And if it's taking me away from money, I need to stop. I need to pause, because this frequency, it's a frequency game. It is not what action do I need to take right now game. The action will often distract you, and it'll put you into a frantic, powerless state. Is there anything else I want to say about this? I think that's everything that I had from my notes section, but I want to open it up for questions. All things money, resources, time scarcity, opportunity scarcity, anything like that. I'm going to keep my eyes open for comments. But one thing that I will say, I wasn't actually expecting to talk about Fabric of the Universe today, but that clearly did come up a lot. I just wasn't expecting that. If you didn't take that masterclass, it is available. That one, we talk about the quantum field, like how the quantum field works, and then your emotional relationship to the quantum field. So that's where the color spectrum analogy was, where I used like the light spectrum in order to communicate what's going on with you in the quantum field. And so that's a really, really great class for those of you who are like really interested in this frequency thing that I'm talking about. That's where I would go for that. That's a 3-day, and then I added an additional lecture to it after the fact. So Fabric of the Universe, it's awesome. It was really, really good. So that's more quantum. So if you're into non-physical, kind of getting outside of what's happening in front of you, take that one. Not sure if this applies, but what would you say around patience as it relates to feeling a scarcity of answers? Okay, so questions and answers are different frequencies again. So it's not that you're waiting for answers, it's you tune yourself to the vibration, the energy, the frequency of it having been answered, and then it'll drop in. Or let me say it more clearly. Tune yourself to clarity and just play with that. Play with the energy of clarity. Because think about, that's right there with answers. Clarity and answers are like the same thing. So if you can just feel clear, like I'm available to feel clear. I love how that feels when I just know, when there's absolute certainty about something. You get what I'm saying? So that way the informational pieces can drop in. I probably need to look into one of your courses for this more in depth, but what is one way to really stay plugged in when it comes to money? Like tangible things, like not checking my money constantly and things like that. So Money Magic is like my signature money class. So there's a practice called mental mold that a lot of people will talk about. They're like, I did mental mold. And it's for this reason. I call it a mental mold exercise because if you do not stay on top of it, it will grow. And this is particularly true with money. So money requires you to stay on top of it really consistently. I would say more than anything else, unless you want to like it just depends on how fast you want to go with something. The more you refine, the more committed you are to refining it, the faster you'll see improvements. But staying plugged in. I mean, I think that this class, honestly, will be a big help because you'll be able to ask yourself, like, am I being tempted? Am I being tempted? Is this worth unplugging? Is this worth obsessing over? Is this worth it? So either for you, I would say Money Magic or Fabric of the Universe. Those two are fantastic. So one is more emotional. Fabric of the Universe is going to be for emotions and the quantum field. Money Magic has been, that's a much bigger class. I've been building that since 2020. So I keep adding. That's also one of the only classes that I have that grows over time. So I keep adding to it. So as soon as you buy it, anything else that I add to it, you get. So right now there's like 3 core lectures. There's a few Q&As. The first core lecture has the mental mold exercise. It has all the mechanical pieces. There's like this beautiful PowerPoint that I made for you. And it has those specific steps of like, do this every day. But it really, I would ask yourself, is it money specific or is it more, I need to stabilize my emotions? If it's the emotional thing, Fabric of the Universe is it. Because that light range where I give you like the color spectrum was very helpful for people. And now it's interesting, you'll see people like in my comment section or even DMs to me where they'll talk about, oh, I was red, or oh, I'm blue, or I'm ultraviolet, or I'm feeling yellow. They'll talk in color because it has to do with, are you plugged in or not? So if you did take Fabric of the Universe, you know that anything beyond yellow is being plugged in. And so it gives you a really good look at, what am I actually going to extract from the quantum field? What is actually going to start organizing itself around me? Fabric of the Universe is it. So if you're dealing with like thought forms, you don't know how to deal with thought forms very well. If you're like, how do I reorganize this? Fabric of the Universe would be great. Money is, we talk about so much stuff in money and in Money Magic. Fabric of the Universe was amazing, as was Heaven's Nectar. Heaven's Nectar was really good too. That was such a fun masterclass. Money Magic. The other thing that I want to add about Money Magic is, well, it's my most popular class, if that tells you anything. But people have also used it for stuff that isn't related to money at all. I had someone send me a message like shortly after I did the first or second lecture, and she was like, oh, I've been taking Money Magic, but I'm actually using it for weight loss. Like, you can use that mental mold exercise for pretty much anything. And the last lecture that I did was in March, and it was about my financial journey getting this house. So I tell you the story of everything that's been going on for like the year prior as I was financially getting ready to get into this house. And so it's a blend of like really structured stuff, more freestyle lecture. It has a whole bunch of different things going on, but I've really allowed that class in particular to just be my financial evolution. So I'm really transparent in there about like, when I first ran that class, I was just in like the $10,000 a month range when I launched Money Magic. And then ever since then, I've just been refining it and bringing more information. When there's a new module, I just bring it. And everyone inside Money Magic gets it. So it's been a lot of fun because it grows and it changes and all of that good stuff. So you get to see me at like different stages financially. What else? I feel like there was something else that came up that I wanted to mention. I don't think so. I think that's it. But those were the big ones. that I would look into. I'll make sure to include those in the email today and in the description box on YouTube. But of course, if you have any questions or if you need anything, you can also email hello@onyxhealing.com. And my team will get you all taken care of, give you everything that you need. I think that's it. Is that it? Any other questions? I think that is it for today. Thank you. I'm so glad to have you here. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Tomorrow is the last day. We're going to be talking all about fear tomorrow. I'm quite excited. And have a beautiful day. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow morning. Have a good one, everybody. Thank you. Bye.